Hello, and welcome to this ClearPoint Master Class. My name is Terence White. I'm a practice lead in the SRE team at ClearPoint, specializing in AWS. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how moving to AWS can support your business strategy. Back in the days when computers were the size of a building, people thought that there has to be better ways than just owning your own computers. And can we get computers to the state where they can be used in the same way that electricity and water is used? Now, it's taken a little bit of time, but in the last 10, 15 years, this concept has really taken off and has become a $55 billion a year industry. Let me take you through the concepts behind how you might consume things inside the cloud. In the old way, if you had some software that you needed to run, you would have to go and get a data center for yourself. You'd have to organize power and some servers and cooling, and you'd then get your team, your own team, to go and plug these servers in. You'd have to install your own operating systems, and then you'd be able to install your software packages and you'd get your applications running. But most businesses out there don't specialize in running computer hardware. They do their own business. So another model has come to the front. In this model, the owning of a data center, the supplying of power and of cooling, and the supplying of the servers is all taken care of by a provider. You can rent a virtual server in this environment, and then your team can take over, put the operating system on, put the applications on, and run your software. But we can get more convenient. We can get the third-party provider to provide the operating system or the application software if it's a database, and they will maintain those for us. And then we can simply use that platform that they provide, and then we put our application on top of that. And we can go up the stack again. What we can do is simply pay a third-party provider to run accounting software or other software for us. And this is quite common nowadays amongst software vendors like Xero. Now, it doesn't matter what size your business is or what sector you're in, there is place for you inside the cloud. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on what I think what makes a tech startup a tech startup. What are the issues with a tech startup? By definition, a tech startup is less than 5 years old. It has a limited amount of funding because they are still in the build phase, but they want to disrupt the market. They want to bring something new. They're not the standard product. In order to bring something new, you have to get there first. You have to beat your competitors. So you have to build this quickly. And you need to try a bunch of experiments because you don't know what's going to work. Because of the limited funding, tech startups typically have few staff, but they are highly skilled. Now, how can moving to the cloud help you with this? Well, on the limited funding side, moving to the cloud means you don't have to buy a lot of hardware. You don't have to run your own data centers. You move from a model which is CapEx heavy into a model which is OpEx heavy. Inside AWS, you get a generous free tier as well. And you can use this free tier for the various products that are available inside there for a year. You can shut down services at night so that you don't have to pay for them. And if you apply to AWS, you might be able to get a grant from them to help your startup access their services, and they'll cover the costs. You need to do rapid development. Well, AWS provides you with sample architectures that you can use out of the box. There's a lot of free online training that is available. You can send your developers on there. And they provide free software development kits for your developers to use to access their services. You can also talk to AWS, who might be able to provide you with solution architects to help you design and build your product. If you're going to be running a lot of experiments, you don't want to pay a lot of money for that. And if you're doing things inside the cloud, the costs are low on the experimenting side. Once you've tried something and it doesn't work, you just destroy it and you stop paying for it. And your company doesn't necessarily need to have people specializing in hardware or in databases, because you can move up that stack that I showed you earlier. You can get managed services, you can get platforms, and have AWS manage the databases for you, and your staff can focus on development. Now, take your tech startup and grow it. AWS is there to help you and will bring you up so that you could become a household name. Now let's take a look at small businesses. In New Zealand, we define a small business as one with less than 20 employees. Here, we have 97% of our businesses meeting that criteria, and it covers 30% of the people employed in New Zealand. The small business typically focuses on their business. They don't have money to spend on IT, and they don't have people who are well familiar with technology to be able to bring themselves into the cloud. If they are going to look at things, they need to have a cheap and easy way of getting these things running. And they also don't want to worry about too many hassles around billing. They want to make sure things are as simple as possible. Well, inside AWS, you can click a bunch of buttons and get a website up and running for your company in a couple of minutes, and the website will cost only $10 a month to run. You can set up a call center inside the cloud, and your staff can log in to the call center from their desktops or their laptops and use their normal headphones on those. You can also get other bigger software solutions if you need them, such as accounting packages from the AWS marketplace. And when it comes to billing, well, all you really need to get started in AWS is an email address and a credit card. Come the end of the month, they'll send you an invoice that breaks down your usage over that month, and they'll bill the amount that you spent to your credit card. Now, it is critical that small businesses become more digital aware. And MBIE, small business team, does have grants available to help a small business become digitally enabled. Go and have a look at their website. Let's take a look at large enterprises. Now, large enterprises are like the big banks. They're across the country. They don't have a small footprint. But also, there's large international firms that are in many countries. These firms are much larger and tend to have specialist technical staff, but they might also have a bit of history where they have stuff running in legacy data centers. If they've been running for a while, they may have huge amounts of data. They definitely have rules that they need to comply with inside their particular industry. They may have a huge selection of software that's running inside their environment. And because they're pretty big and they maintain tight control of their accounts, they'd like to know what costs are for the various different components inside the cloud. Right, well, AWS does have a presence in New Zealand, and they are growing. They have offices in Auckland and in Wellington, and they have a network connection inside Auckland so that people in New Zealand can connect up directly and not have to go overseas. They are bringing a region which is a full set of services to New Zealand in 2024. But even before that, we're going to get a restricted set of services which should be coming in 2023. If you don't want to wait that long, you can use AWS in Australia, which is the closest. There is currently a region in Sydney, and there will be a region in Melbourne coming soon. You can connect into AWS from your legacy data centers quite easily. There's a number of different ways of doing so. AWS has a presence in a lot of data centers around the world, and if you have presence in that data center as well, you can connect directly into the AWS environment. If you don't, you can connect up via a virtual private network. If your legacy data center is running VMware, you can set up VMware inside AWS, and then you can manage both environments using the same vCenter controls. And you can fail seamlessly between the two environments. And if you're looking to get out of those data centers, you can ask AWS if they can give you some funding to help you migrate across. There is money available for that. Now, what are you going to do with these huge amounts of data that you have in your environment and you want to take them into the cloud? Well, there is a device that AWS can ship you that you can plug into your data centers. You can copy your data onto it, send it back to AWS, and they'll copy your data into the cloud for you. And that's going to save on your network costs and sending data overseas. There is also the ability to create data lakes at the push of a button. Inside AWS, you can store huge amounts of data in the S3 service. It's practically unlimited, and the costs get quite cheap if you choose that your data will be accessed less frequently. When it comes down to compliance, AWS is SOC 1, 2, and 3 certified, and they're happy to give you the reports. You can enable AWS Security Hub, which can help you become PCI compliant, or there are a variety of other compliance packs that you can enable as well. AWS doesn't just restrict you to running software on x86 servers. They have ARM servers available. They have Mac servers available, and you can use GPUs attached to your servers if you need to. And if your software really needs a lot of oomph behind it, you can allocate a server up to 448 CPUs or up to 24 terabytes of RAM. When it comes down to cost segmentation, it's actually pretty easy. You can use AWS Control Tower to segment your products into different AWS accounts and use those as a billing boundary. You can set budgets on those accounts and be notified when those accounts are approaching their budgeted limit. And you can go and visualize your costs in the Cost Explorer and see exactly where you're putting the money into. Now, the last sector I'm going to talk about is government. And government have different motives to the for-profit industries. They want to provide digital experiences and digital services to their citizens. They're a little worried about offshoring some of their data. And for government, availability and security of services is absolutely critical because it holds citizens' information. Government also want to lead the way with sustainability. They have a lot of data on the citizens and they want to be able to use those. And what government do is they don't tend to develop things themselves, they tend to outsource stuff to vendors. And of course, as a taxpayer, I'm quite interested in that last point of keeping the costs low. Now, if you want to store stuff in the cloud, but you don't want it to go offshore, at the moment, we don't have AWS regions inside New Zealand, but you could order an AWS outpost, which could be delivered to your own data centers, and you can plug that in and use it as if it was a part of AWS. Security is job zero. You can store your data encrypted at rest using industry standard AES 256 encryption, and you can make sure that your data is encrypted in transit using SSL certificates. AWS can provide you with a web application firewall to help you secure your applications on the internet. You can also use AWS Inspector to check your servers that you're running in the cloud for vulnerabilities and to notify you so that you can patch those as quick as possible. And AWS has a product called GuardDuty, which is an intrusion detection system which can notify you if it spots suspicious activities on your account. You can see what the carbon footprint of the servers you're running and the applications you're running is inside the AWS console. And AWS is going to move all their data centers to 100% renewable energy by 2025. Governments have large amounts of information that they'd like to make available to other parties to use. And AWS provides a public service where you can put data sets on, and the costs of storing those data sets and downloading them is covered by Amazon. When it comes to outsourcing your development to vendors, how do you know if the vendors are qualified or not? AWS runs a partner network called the AWS Partner Network, and service providers can register with this and can achieve competencies in this. And when it comes to keeping costs low, we've already discussed ways that they can turn off services they're not using and how they can keep control of costs and segment them. Now, AWS does have a global presence. There are regions in most continents and across the world. And in fact, this map is inaccurate, as in the last 2 days, they've opened up another 2 regions, one in Zurich and one in Barcelona. When you move into the cloud, it's important to know that AWS will secure the cloud, the hardware, the data centers, but when you start using it, you're responsible for securing the services that you're using and the services that you're provisioning. How do you get started with it? Well, I've put a few links on the slide over here, and the most important one is at the bottom there. Please go and have a look at an AWS user group near you. Go and attend some sessions, meet people, and get started inside the world of the cloud. Thank you.